YouTube! Welcome to day 28 of my birthday countdown vlog. 12 more days until I turn 40. And as you can tell, I'm back home again. Alright, so when I was 12, it was 1984, and finishing up 6th grade that year, starting 7th grade. And 6th grade was an interesting year for me. I transferred back to a public school in 6th grade. I had been spending a few years at a private Christian school. Long story, I'll get into that in tomorrow's vlog perhaps. And when I went back into 6th grade, they looked at my old Iowa standardized test scores from when I was in 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade. And so they didn't have a 6th grade teacher at that school at the time. And so I was either going to get stuck in a 5th grade classroom or a 7th grade classroom. Well, based on my old Iowa test scores, they thought I could, be put into the 7th grade classroom. And I did okay. I was fine handling that, but then the second half of 6th grade, which would have been into 1984, they finally hired a 6th grade teacher. And I ended up getting moved back into the 6th grade, which was appropriate for me. I was struggling a little bit with the math at the 7th grade level at that point. And the new teacher, her name was Ms. Moy, she was a rather interesting teacher, and it turns out that for some reason there was something about me that she didn't like, because she was giving me very poor grades. In fact, she was trying to fail me across all subjects by the end of that year. And I was really struggling with it, and I was like, this is wrong. The papers that she would give back to me, and she would mark things wrong, and I'm like, no, this is right. I know this is right. And between myself and my grandmother, finally got fed up with it all, because my grandmother kept talking to the teacher, and the teacher was like, no, she's struggling, she's, not paying attention. The teacher had all sorts of excuses for my poor grades. And we finally took the issue to the principal, and the principal was, well, let me retest you. And so he actually had some kind of test that he put together to test my aptitude across all the subjects I should have knowledge in at that point. And apparently I passed his test with flying colors, after which he had a long talk with Ms. Moy. And I passed the 6th grade just fine and got into 7th grade with no problem. And apparently that summer Ms. Moy had a nervous breakdown, and she was gone from the school for about a year. And when she came back as a 2nd grade teacher. She had tenure, so they couldn't fire her and all this stuff. But yeah, there was, and apparently I wasn't the only student that she was doing this to. The principal looked into it and looked at everybody's grades and retested a few other people at the same time. None of their parents were willing to go talk to him, and he was like, well, let me find out. And so there was definitely some issues going on there. But yeah, that was not the best start to 1984 for me. But then, that summer, my grandmother and I actually had a chance to go to Germany again. This will be my 3rd trip in my childhood that I had a chance to go and visit my relatives. And she was going to visit her old lover from when she was a young lady before she met my grandfather. My grandfather had passed away at this point, and she and he somehow found each other again, and his wife had passed away, my grandmother's husband had passed away, and so he was flying her out to visit. And unfortunately, the poor man was suffering from Alzheimer's, and we didn't know it at the time. We didn't find that out until a year or two later, but he was acting rather odd. But we went out. My grandmother went off with him, and she left me with my relatives. And I spent most of my time that year with my Tante Eri, her youngest sister. And she lived in a really tiny little farming town. I don't even remember the name of the town anymore, but it was a really tiny farming town where all the farmers live in the town, and then all the farm fields kind of are circling around the town itself. And she ran the local pub, basically. And every Saturday, everybody in town every family in town ordered chicken with French fries from her. Hühnchen mit Pommes frites in German. It was her specialty, and everybody, there was like maybe 500 people in the town, and I would say that would be somewhere between four and, not 4 or 500, I'm sorry, like 50 to 100 families. Most of the farmers had large families. So that was kind of fun. And then because Tante Eri, you know, she ran this pub, so she was up until 2, 3 in the morning. The bar was open very late every night. And then she still had to clean. I think the bar was open until like 1 a.m. and then she still had to clean and everything and shut everything down. And so she wouldn't get to bed until like 4 or 5 in the morning. And then she would sleep until 1 in the afternoon every day. And because I was 12 and she didn't have any children, she actually sent me up the road to the next farming town to stay with a friend of hers, because they had 4 kids, and they had like all the kids in the neighborhood just kind of hung out with her kids all the time. So there was a group of like 10 of us, and we just spent most of the summer while I was there hiking in the woods in the area. We sometimes would hike all the way over to the next neighboring town where there was a store that sold ice cream. Or we'd go berry picking up in the woods, or climbing cherry trees and picking cherries and just eating them right off the tree. And there was one point which was interesting, when there was one hike that we would do in the woods, and we'd only stop at one point and turn around. And I asked, it's like, why don't we keep going? I mean, it's early in the day and beautiful day out, why don't we keep going? And the kids looked at me and said, oh no, we can't go any further. The Amis live there, and the Amis meant the Americans. Apparently there was some military officers who had homes up on a ridge in that area, and these were higher ranking officers, and these were kind of really nice homes. And I looked at them and I said, wait a minute, what do you mean, you know, what's wrong with the Americans? Oh, they eat children, it's very dangerous. And I looked at them and I'm like, are you guys crazy? I'm American. I mean, I spoke fluent German, so you know, I didn't struggle communicating with them. And they looked at me like, no, you can't be American. I'm like, yes I am. Born and raised in Chicago. And I was like, come on, let's go see what these Americans are like. And we walked up the road right behind their homes, and there were people out barbecuing in their backyards and stuff, and I waved and said, hey, how you doing? And with my very American English, and they were like, hey, you know, hey, where are you from? You're not from around here, are you? And hey, why don't you come in and bring your friends? We got plenty of food. And so I brought the kids in, and they checked out some real American barbecue, and they were all nervous, but they were like, oh, these people aren't so bad after all. They're actually kind of friendly. I don't remember the parents getting mad at me for doing that, but the parents were obviously telling these children tales about the Americans. I think they wanted the kids to leave the Americans alone, didn't want them to be disturbed. And so they were telling these kids that Americans eat children, so that they would leave those families alone. But in the end, the officers were just absolutely really friendly, and they were like, hey, you know, it'd be great to have some more kids for our kids to play with, and you know, maybe they can teach my kids some German and stuff. So I actually kind of bridged a little gap there between the two communities, unknowingly. It just kind of happened. So anyway, so that was a really cool thing that happened to me in 1984, and that will I think be my favorite summer that I had as a child, was that trip, because I got to do so many things, and I wasn't with my grandmother for most of it, and so that was actually a lot of fun. I kind of feeling a little bit independent of my family, which was kind of cool. Got a chance to spread my wings a little bit, even though I was only 12. Alright, well, until tomorrow,